Cyberpunk 2077 is a truly remarkable game in many ways. There are some of the highest highs I have ever experienced in the medium. These unfortunately have often been accompanied by some truly baffling lows. The graphics on high-end machines are breathtaking, voice acting is stellar across the board, and the majority of the writing is excellent while the gameplay is genuinely fun in a way I wasn't expecting. The bugs and glitches, however, are numerous and frustrating. At launch, it was one of the buggiest games I had ever played, and though a patch thankfully did hit a few days later that made things more stable and better looking, it still feels undercooked in a few ways. Despite that, the overall package of what the game is now is something to be marveled at, as long as you're on the right platform. Originally announced in May of 2012, CD Projekt Red's Cyberpunk 2077 has finally been released. After numerous delays, Night City is finally available in all of its splendor. Those with a capable PC will be treated to what is one of the most beautiful games ever created, and the lucky few that actually have a Xbox Series X or S or a PlayStation 5 will get a version of the game that looks nice, runs well. Performance mode on the Xbox Series X is what I played through for the entirety of my time. The feel of the game at 60 frames per second most of the time was worth what was a small downgrade in image over the quality mode for me. I did check the game out on the Series S and the image quality was solid and 30 frames per second felt rock steady. However, the majority of the player base will be playing on either base PS4 or base Xbox One, and they are left with a game that is clearly unfinished and nearly unplayable. It is in such a bad state that CD Projekt Red had to come out and apologize for it with promises of fixing it no later than February of 2021. Actual next-gen versions that take full advantage of the hardware and may possibly include things such as the PC's absolutely gorgeous ray tracing mode are only listed as coming next year so far. At its heart, Cyberpunk is most similar to Fallout 4 in both its world and gameplay setup. Your first choice is the backstory for your character, V. They are a highly customizable avatar, though only cis male and female are available as choices, despite the game allowing you to set whatever genitalia you want. It lends the illusion of a better gender choice than most games offer, but in the end it just ends up being mostly a prop. V's origin stories come in three varieties. These are Nomad, Street Kid, and Corpo. Nomads begin out in the Badlands just outside of Night City and have lived a nomadic life with their family, the Backers, up until a recent split. Street Kids grew up in the slums of Night City and know the seedier parts of it like the back of their hands, while Corpos are used to living where the real power lies, with the corporations that run the local government like a group of soulless puppets. Depending on your choice, you will have a completely different first mission of the game, and your dialogue choices throughout your journey will have specific lines tailored to your history. All three choices, though, end up with you starting your life as a merc looking to make your name as a Night City legend. There are 5 main attributes to put your talents and perks into. These are body, intelligence, reflexes, technical ability, and cool. They all give various bonuses depending on how you want to power your protagonist. Within each of these are at least 2 and occasionally 3 subsets of perks. These give boosts in specific categories such as a longer duration for your hacks or things as simple as 10% more health. It is a deep and dense system that requires forethought as you cannot earn enough talent or perk points to max everything out. Combat itself is a mix of stealth, hacking, melee, and range combat. Nearly every scenario in the game can be approached in any of these ways, and certain items allow you to have a kill-free playthrough if you so desire. In my playthrough, I ended up focusing mainly on sniper rifles and mantis blades. The mantis blades are a set of cybernetic blades that pop out of your forearms. With them I became a whirling dervish of gore, healing every time I hit an enemy I had caused to bleed. There are a wide variety of melee weapon types, including one that is called Gorilla Arms, and it's basically you just start smashing everything like an angry gorilla. Guns are limited to 4 classes. There are pistols, rifles, shotguns, and snipers. There is a small but diverse enough variety in each subset, and the tech versions allow you to shoot through walls. Combined with the ability to spot enemies through your hacking, this becomes an incredible tool for safely picking people off from a distance. Add in a silencer, and the dumb AI has no idea what's going on. Quick hacks. These can be crafted, purchased, or looted and added to your cyber deck. Use of these in or out of combat causes everything to slow down as you choose through a burgeoning suite of offensive, defensive, and control moves that allow you to take over any situation. Starting off each encounter, you'll generally want to do Breach Protocol. This is a simple number puzzle, and you will run through it hundreds of times as you play through. Thankfully, it's quick and satisfying enough that I never grew tired of it. It's used to give you a few bonuses against anyone you're about to encounter, or helps you earn additional eddies, or Euro dollars, in this future version of America. The systems in play here are varied and generally feel satisfying in a way that I feared they would not after watching early gameplay videos. Shooting feels good, melee feels real good, and hacking is both vilely and by the endgame potentially incredibly powerful. You'll level things in the Skyrim approach, where you use it if you want to make it better. After 53 hours, I was only level 35 out of 50, and I plan to immediately dig back into finishing powering my V up to the max level. Another system in place is called Street Cred. This is primarily a gating system for unlocking new gear, Cyber slots, and extra missions. The soul of Cyberpunk is the character Johnny Silverhand, played in a strange but ultimately appropriate feeling way by Keanu Reeves. His delivery never feels quite like the way a human would actually talk, but as you get to know the character, it started to make sense to me. As this is a spoiler-free review, I will not get too deep into the minutia, but suffice it to say that Cyberpunk has some of the best quests that I have ever played. The main story pulled me in the moment the Cyberpunk logo popped up on the screen, which for me was roughly 6 hours into my playthrough and felt perfect in its timing. The prologue is fun, but it's limited in its scope, and the instant that was over, you start the game proper, and boy does it open up. It is one of the largest and most dense open-world RPGs I can remember. There may be bigger maps or games with more quests, but for me, none of them ever matched the level of detail in the environment, and few match the quality of the writing. I would estimate the main quest can be completed in roughly 20 to 25 hours, but in my playthrough, I ended up at the aforementioned 53. This was due in large part because of just how fantastic nearly every major side quest was. Even the smaller ones end up having emotional beats or funny parts that are worth experiencing. There's even a racing side quest, which I would normally avoid like the plague, but the writing in it was so solid that I powered through it in a few hours and ended up loving it. The voice acting is uniformly excellent in the English version of the game that I played through. Both the female and male actors for V do a solid job recording the occasionally hokey and purposely try-hard sounding dialogue. Cyberpunk as a genre is meant to be an excess of the 1980s ideas about the future. This carries through in the terrified ideals of Japan taking over the world with their technology. And while I have seen discourse about how every ethnic character has a huge accent and are nothing more than a stereotype, I did not find that to be true in practice, at least for the main characters and the side quests. It is a world overrun by corporations where everyone and everything has the likelihood of being some form of a degenerate morally. And on the whole, I felt the voice acting was both appropriate for the themes and well done across the board. The soundtrack is another area where the game shines. With a varied mix of genres, the game knows when to pick things up and when to fade lower into the mix and allow the dialogue to take center stage. Composers Marcin Przybyłowicz and Paul Leonard Morgan have compiled music from a wide variety of genres, such as jazz, hip-hop, metal, industrial, and rave. Certain background pieces also are highly reminiscent in the best of ways for Deus Ex and Blade Runner, two staples of the genre. It's been mostly positive up to now, but not everything is up to snuff, as a wide variety of bugs has plagued this game at launch. From the most powerful PC to the weakest of last generation consoles, there has been no shortage of issues and glitches for consumers. For my part, I was lucky enough to never have a mission stop working or the game itself to crash, but I did run into a large number of smaller bugs. The majority of these were things such as odd physics leading to people's jackets not moving along with the rest of their body, or enemies teleporting around as the game couldn't determine where they should exist in time and space. At launch, the Xbox version was plagued with a rare but occasionally long freeze. Most of these were 2 or 3 seconds for me on the Series X, but I had one that was almost a minute. It would just completely freeze up, and then out of nowhere, done. And everything worked fine. Thankfully, that has been gone since the patch, but I had read reports that it was up to 2 or 3 minutes on the base console. The city itself is densely packed, but it's mostly with set-dressing NPCs in what clearly was an area cut to release the game before 2020 ended. The citizens of Night City generally don't care if a car is flipping around in a way that defies physics above their heads and proceeds to go through 1 or 2 canned animations when violence breaks out around them. The Night City Police Department is not any better in how it reacts to you breaking the law. They routinely appear out of nowhere if you break the law like they're a bunch of cop ninjas, and they can be defeated with the brilliant tactic of driving away in a straight line. If the game had more focus on open world exploring, this would have been far more detrimental for me, but on the whole, the gigantic map was littered with so many activities to complete that I rarely thought about just driving around and messing with the systems like you might in a GTA game. I would say the representation of minorities and the LGBTQ+ community is handled moderately well in the actual missions themselves. I did find it wanting, however, in the NPCs that fill up the streets. They're generally dressed in what you'd expect of 1980s American film stereotypical representations. I know this fits in a bit with the cyberpunk genre itself, but in 2020 it does not always live up to our more compassionate modern sensibilities. This is a game with a lot of compromises made to get it out the door, and unfortunately these NPCs are one of the biggest. In conclusion, the incredible highs for me outweigh the occasional lows. This game would have been a 10 if it had been more properly managed and released in a truly finished state. As it is still one of the best open world RPGs I have ever played. The graphics, gameplay, story, and audio are all at the top of the industry. If you are on a PC or have a next-gen console, Cyberpunk 2077 is an easy recommendation. If not, then I suggest giving it 3 to 6 months so that it may be brought up to what anyone would consider an actually acceptable level. I do fully believe that within a year, this will be seen as perhaps one of the best games of all time. Thanks for watching, and if you like this review, please like, comment, and subscribe. And we'll see you next time at XboxEra.